Oh, these lights are legit. No longer is my face hidden in the shadows. You can see and enjoy my face for all its majestic beauty. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Isaac. I'm back at you with another video. And the reason why it took so long since my last upload is because I took a long time trying to figure out how to make pho. There's a lot of different videos out there on the internet, about pho recipes and what works for them. And I actually took some of those elements and I gave them a try. And the first couple of weeks that I tried doing this, it didn't turn out right. And then I eventually came with a pho that I felt like was really good, but it was a little bit too fatty. It was more like a Vietnamese stew instead of pho. And finally, I feel like I came across a recipe that works for me. And here I am to share it with you. Cue the intro music. So the foundations of a really good pho is going to be the beef broth. In order to do that, what you want to do is you want to get a bunch of beef bones and maybe some fatty pieces with some ligaments and some tendon and all that stuff. And you want to boil these for a long time. So at my local Asian grocery store, I picked up a package of beef knuckle bones, a package of beef neck bones, and some slices of beef shank. And what we're going to do now is we're going to blanch these bones first in boiling water for about 20 minutes. And the reason why we blanched them first is because blanching it and boiling for 20 minutes, you're going to see this cloud of scum, like this blanket of pillowy scum. It's nasty. This is the impurities in the blood, and you just don't want to consume this. So what we're going to do after 20 minutes of boiling the bones, we're going to empty the pot. We're going to take out the bones and we're going to rinse the bones thoroughly as well as the pot. We want to make sure we get rid of all the scum and any residue. So once you clean the bones, you have a nice clean pot, we're going to put the bones back in and we're going to fill the pot with about 20 liters of water. Now hold up here. I know some of you might be like, 20 liters of water? I don't have a pot that big. Neither do I. That's the reason why I went to my brother's and sister-in-law's house, because they had a huge 20-liter crab pot. But here's the thing, if you don't have a pot or if you don't have access to a pot like that large, I'm not going to tell you to go out there and buy one, because that's a little bit, that's just kind of unrealistic here, because you're never going to use a 20-liter pot oftenly. But because we live in Maryland during the summer seasons, it's all about the Maryland blue crabs. And that's the reason why we had them available. But if you don't have access to it, using a smaller pot is still good. You just have to adjust the recipe according to what you have. And that's the beautiful thing about making this pho. And here's the thing, a little bit goes a long way. So altogether, I have about 3 or 4 pounds of bones and beef, and that is enough to flavor 20 liters of broth here. So if you have a smaller pot, just adjust the recipe accordingly. Now, one of the mistakes that I made was I used a smaller pot the first time I made pho, and I read the recipe, and the recipe said about 1.5 pounds of oxtail, and I was like, forget that, oxtail is amazing, so I'm gonna double that to 3 pounds. And guess what? My broth became too fatty and savory, and it tasted more like a oxtail stew with Vietnamese flavors. You don't want that. I know some other recipes, they talk about putting oxtail, which is beautiful as long as you have the right amount, and also like fatty pieces of brisket and all that stuff. But here's the thing, I'm broke. I already spent and wasted my money on the other failed attempts of making pho. And I know some of you watching might be broke too, so I just got what was cheap and available to me, and it just happened to be the knuckle bones, the neck bones, and the slices of beef shank. And it worked out beautifully. Once we put the bones back, we fill up the pot with water. We're going to bring that up to a simmer. And while we're doing that, as we're waiting for the pot to get hot enough to simmer, we're going to prepare our spices and our aromatics. For spices, here's what I use. I use coriander seeds, cloves, black cardamom, star anise. And no, it's not star anise, it's star anise, okay? Rock sugar, bay leaves, cinnamon sticks, sea salt. For aromatics, we want 3 onions, 1 big piece of ginger, like a whole piece. 1 clove of garlic, 1 small clove. Now for my Korean brothers and sisters, listen to me, this is a PSA. Not everything needs garlic, my friend. 1 small clove of garlic is enough for 20 liters of broth, okay? And what we want is fish sauce. Now again, fish sauce is, I don't know a lot about fish sauce. I know it's smelly, I know it could be tasty in certain applications. Some recipes call for, get the best quality, like the most expensive fish sauce. And honestly, like, again, I'm not that rich, and I don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on a condiment that I'm really gonna use. So I just bought something kind of mid-grade, and this is what I found. So here's what we're gonna do. In a dry pan, we're gonna put in half a cup of coriander seeds, 5 cloves, 5 black cardamom pods, about 10 star anise. I don't know if that's the correct term, 10 star anise or 10 stars of anise. I don't know, but you get the point, 10 stars. I'm using 5 bay leaves and 5 cinnamon sticks. Again, you could adjust this recipe according to your own taste. Now I know some of you are kind of like going, man, this is a lot of different, spices for me just to make a bowl of pho. I get it. I spent about $30 buying all these spices from my local Asian market. And here's the thing though, a little bit goes a long way, so we're not using a lot of it. And if you properly store these spices, guess what? Next time you want to make this pho recipe, you got the spices available at hand. So we're gonna put this in a very dry pan, and we're gonna put it on medium-low heat. We don't want to cook this, we just want to heat it, just so that all the flavors and that aroma just becomes very, very powerful. Like it just opens up, it blooms up because of the heat. So we're just gonna dump that in our broth. So we're gonna take 2 onions, we're gonna cut them in half. You can peel out the outer layer if you want. I took the piece of ginger, cut that in half, put it on a roasting tray, and I set my oven to broil at a high temperature. And what we want to do is we just want to blacken the onion and the ginger until it releases like this earthy, smoky flavor. So we're just going to do that. We don't want to cook it all the way through. We just want to make sure it's just blackened and charred on the outside. And once that's done, just dump it in the broth. And then the other piece of onion that we have that we didn't char, we're just going to peel it. I just like to leave it whole, dump that in. That 1 tiny clove of garlic, dump that in. And I like to use maybe about a cube inch of rock sugar. And once you put the rock sugar in, about 3 tablespoons of salt. We're gonna put about a cup of fish sauce. Now I don't have a measuring cup. My brother and sister-in-law didn't have a measuring cup, so I just eyeballed it. And we're just gonna let this simmer for 6 hours. And here's the thing, because of fish sauce, the first couple of hours it's gonna smell like rotten fish in your home. After those first couple of hours, around hour 3, your place is gonna start to smell like this wonderful pho restaurant. You start to smell the cinnamon, and you start to smell like the cardamom, the cloves, the star anise, and all that stuff, the bay leaves, and it's like this wonderful blend of aromas that's gonna fill your household. It's gonna smell like a legit pho shop. So after 6 hours of simmering this broth, take out the bones and the spices and the onions and the ginger, and this is what you're left with. Look at that liquid gold. Beautiful broth. And what you want to do is you want to take your Vietnamese pho noodles. This is the brand that I got. I don't know what's good. I just went to my local Asian market and I found out that this particular brand, there was only about 2 packages left, so I figured, hey, this must be a hot seller. So I grabbed these 2. It turned out really great. Assemble your bowl. You'll put some slices of meat in there, and you got your fresh herbs such as cilantro, green onions, Thai basil, limes. If you want, you could put bean sprouts. I'm not a big fan of bean sprouts. It tastes like soap to me. You got your hoisin sauce and sriracha if you want, but you assemble the bowl to your liking, and this is one of the best pho broths that I ever had. So what's great about this recipe is after we're finished eating and cleaning up, I still had maybe about 10 to 15 liters of pho broth left over. Now obviously that's way too much for me to eat in one sitting. So what I did is I store them. I put them in plastic bags and I froze them. And that's the beautiful thing, we could store this and freeze it for later use. And next time if you have a pho fix, you had the broth available for you, just heat it up, go to your store, pick up the thin slices of brisket or whatever meat you want to use, get the herbs, again, and you essentially have your pho. Now I know some of you are watching this going, it just makes more sense to me to spend a 10-15 minute drive, go to my local favorite pho joint, spend the 10-15 bucks, and enjoy a nice big old bowl of pho, instead of having me to go everywhere and pick up these ingredients and then spend the 6 to 8 hours of preparing and cooking it. And hey, that's perfectly fine. You do you, support local businesses. In fact, I'm still gonna frequent my favorite local pho joints as well. But the reason why I'm sharing this with you, and the reason why I'm sharing these cooking things with you, is because I'm not trying to teach you how to be the best cook in the world. I just want to challenge all of you. Because I feel like we live in a society where we give up too frequently and too easily. So for example, who would have thought that a Korean American guy like me, who was born in Baltimore, Maryland, be able to smoke a decent Texas style brisket? Who would have thought someone like me be able to make a decent bowl of pho? And yes, I spent the first couple of weeks messing up, being disappointed with my failures in my attempt to make a decent bowl of pho. But that's just the process of success. You fail. And through that process of failure, you could come out of that in two ways. You could either give up, be discouraged, or you could learn from that mistake and realize that the impossible isn't so impossible. And that's the reason why I want to share this with you, all 14 of you or so. Peace and God bless.